as ministry leaders and future ministers. I'm Sehi, and this is Taylor, and we're so glad you're joining us today.
Our podcast is designed to offer tangible leadership competencies that you can easily apply to your ministry context.
That's right. So today, in our Grow Together segment, we're going to be talking about mentorship. Now, I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at this amazing article that's out there on Influence Magazine, and it's talking about mentorship among female ministers. And today, we're sitting right here with the author, very excited. Taylor, that article just really transformed my life.
Thank you, Sehi.
So today, we're going to talk about some of these things based on your writing. So I know you can't wait to read that, right? So I know there's a lot of roadblocks when we're talking about mentoring. We want to have a healthy mentorship relationship, but it's not always the best. So in your generation, what are some of the roadblocks that you see that we can do better?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think thinking about this concept of roadblock, one of the biggest roadblocks is that there's no roadmap to ministry. It's hard as a young person to go from, okay, I feel God calling me to be blank, to practically and actually doing that. I remember with my own call, I first felt called to ministry as a teenager, and I was at my little tiny church in small town West Virginia where I grew up, and I thought, well, that's great. I'm so excited for this call, but what am I supposed to do now? Do I go to Bible college? I know there's something called credentials. Am I supposed to get those? What are those? How do I get those? Practically speaking, it was tough.
Yes, and for those of us that are already ministering and have credentials, we know it's a no-brainer, and we know the pathway because we have gone through that. But for them, it's a simple things that we just kind of take for granted that they don't know. Just share what we've gone through, then they will have that roadmap that she wants, right? Yes. Is there any other roadblock that you see?
Absolutely, yes. I think another roadblock is a lack of examples or mentors. Another way of putting that, Sehi, we can't be what we don't see.
That is so true. And it actually resonates with me because when I was called to ministry, and I battled with that a little bit because I looked around and there was no female pastor, but I was called to a pastoral ministry. And so I was very confused. But had I had some examples, had I seen somebody who was actually doing what I was called to do, I think it would have made more sense that wow, this is a possibility. This is actually a thing that I can pursue. So because I've gone through that, I understand exactly what you mean.
Absolutely, yeah. There's value as a young people in being able to point to someone and say, look, she's doing the type of ministry I feel called to do. It is possible. It helps validate that the call we feel is actually doable. That
is so good. Any other roadblocks that you want to talk about?
Yeah, another roadblock is similar to that, having a lack of examples. We don't have a lot of advocates that are going to open doors for us, that are going to challenge us, that are going to give us space to grow in our gifts.
Wow. That is so convicting to say there's no one out there who will say, I believe in you and go for it and I will open doors for you. But I believe that this podcast will encourage so many of us to just that. We will become great advocates for our future ministers. Well, I think there are a lot of roadblocks. Maybe we didn't cover all of them, but just knowing that there are some existing and those are real good ones. Don't get discouraged yet because I know that these roadblocks can transform into opportunities. So we're going to talk about what are those opportunities that we have. Now, let me take a brief moment to talk to our mentors. Mentors, before we just disciple somebody, we need to understand the world of Taylor, the generation, her generation. So let's talk about that just briefly. Number one, and this may shock you because it shocked me, they want us. Did you hear me? She wants me in her life. She wants my input, experiences, and guidance. Taylor, why does it matter so much to you?
Yes, we want you because we need, just like you said, we need your wisdom. We need your guidance. So if you're maybe sitting there thinking, should I ask this young woman if she wants me to walk with her? Does she really want my input? Let me just save you time and mental space because the answer to that is yes. We so do. We need you.
That is so encouraging to know that there is space for us mentors to just interject in their lives and be the life-giving person for them. All right, number 2, mentors. Remember this. They want to communicate with us and also be heard. Now, I think this goes even for us too, as mentors and as people who are still growing in ministry. I want to communicate with people that are my superiors, my mentors, and I want to communicate with them and be heard too. But here's the thing. Her generation communicates differently. Yes. So how can we communicate better so you can actually be heard and we can have a great communication road?
That's a good question. I think when you think about my generation, something to keep in mind is we're the generation that grew up behind a screen. So we'll probably text you to set up a time to meet, not pick up the phone and call you, or we might shoot you a Facebook message or put something on Instagram. We are the screen generation. That's how we grew up, and that is very much how we communicate also.
Yes, and I love that when I told one of my mentees about, hey, you can call me at any time, I'm here for you, and she took it to heart, and I am so thankful she did, because she called me at 3 o'clock in the morning or texted me, and it woke me up, and I was so happy to be there for her. But this is the thing, it's not about being inconvenient, it's about being available and being mentoring, just in season or out of season, being there for them. And so I'm so thankful. And so communicate the way that they can be heard, because when you do that, and they will hear you also. All right, I think there's one more that I want to tell you about. They're not impressed by your titles or positions. Their generation is not impressed by that, but they're watching us and they want us to walk the talk.
Yes.
Is that true?
So true. My generation, we can smell fake from a mile away. Yes. Genuineness is a huge deal to this generation. And so, yes, we're interested in your opportunities. We're interested in the platforms you have and your titles. But more than that, we're just interested in you. We want to be with you. We want to see that you are the real deal. We want to see that you are you before you are you with your title.
Wow, that is so good. Be you before you are the one with the title. I'm going to take that to heart. Yes. Well, I forgot to mention, and maybe this is the greatest tip for us to understand your world, is that this generation are full of great advocates. You know how she said we want advocates, but they themselves are already advocates for the marginalized, for the weak, for the poor. So because they are, that's who they are, they expect us mentors and then the generation before them to be like them. That's their expectation. Yes. What do you think, Taylor?
Yes, definitely. We are the advocate generation. And so seeing older people and older ministers advocate for us, that's our love language.
Wow. Sure. Mm-hmm. We can speak each other's love language. Yes. Let's be fluent in it, right?
Yes.
That's good.
So good.
So, Taylor, how can we as mentors become better at what we're doing? How can we pave the way for you so that it's easier for you to rise up and be obedient to God's calling?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, first of all, thank you to mentors. Thank you to the older generation of ministers for even asking that question. That's a huge step in and of itself. And I think the fact that we're beginning to have these conversations and look for ways to partner is a big step. Right, a big step forward. Yeah, and that being said, I do think there are some practical handles that the older generation can grab onto as they walk with young people.
So listen up right now. Right.
Yeah. The first one, number one, is be proactive and reach out. Like we said earlier, our generation, I promise, we do want to spend time with you. We do want your input. We value what you have to say. So don't be afraid. Reach out to us.
That's good. Maybe some of us are like folding arms. I'm like, oh, the spoiled generation always want to be reached out first. But let me tell you, there is a value in being reached out, because that means somebody's been watching you. That means somebody sees what you don't see. And here's a great thing. Jesus himself set an example. He reached out to his disciples. He went out and looked for him. So it's a no-brainer for us as Christian leaders to do just that. So let's reach out and be advocates for them. All right. Something else?
Another way this older generation can walk with young people is include us in your journey. We want to see that you didn't just always have you with your title, but it was a journey for you to get to where you are now. We need to hear about the times when you maybe questioned your call or you wrestled with, is this really what God wants me to do? Tell us about the times you got hurt. Tell us about the times you wondered, man, can I really be in this ministry thing for the long haul?
Yes.
We need to hear your journey. And to that, too, I would add, don't discount the small details or the small parts of your journey that maybe seem insignificant as you look back over your life, because to us, those small things might be really big in this season of life. So tell us your journey, tell us your story, even the small, minute things.
Taylor, I really appreciate you saying that. But let me also tell you, as somebody who's already pastoring and in the position of influence, I still struggle with that sometimes. I still haven't gotten it together. I'm still figuring it out, this journey of lead pastoral calling. So I think there's a value in just being transparent and honest, because we don't have to have it all together. But what she's saying is include us in the journey. If you're struggling, if you're wondering, questioning, can I just know that? And because we don't have to be all put together and say, I've got it together. I know everything that I'm supposed to do. What she needs to know is, even while I'm doing this, there are times that it's difficult. And she needs to know that, because one day it will be her reality. And I'll be there for you. Yeah, I'll be there for you. Anything else?
Yes, I think another huge way for this older generation to come alongside us is give us small platforms to develop our gifts. And again, it's not to say, give us the mic, put us front and center, none of that at all, but give us a place to grow. We want to grow in our gifts. Sometimes we're just not really sure where to look. So as much as you can, use your position to maybe onboard us and give us small things to grow. That is very helpful to young people.
What a blessing for mentors that we are in the position of influence and authority to open that, to pave that way for them. I remember that I am in this position because of my mentors who were courageous enough to open doors for me, giving small opportunity, starting with reading my announcement, doing the announcements and leading prayers. And then eventually I got to preach. Eventually I got to lead. So it's a small steps, right? One step at a time. So let's use our position of authority and influence that God has given us. It's a gift. So let's use it to empower the next generation.
Yes. And even something that came to mind as you were saying that. So one of the gifts I feel the Lord has given me is writing. And I remember back a couple of months ago, a mentor of mine was scheduled to speak at a women's retreat. And they needed her one-page bio type thing for the retreat booklet they were putting together. And because she knew I wanted to grow in this gift of writing, she said, hey, would you be willing to help me write this bio for the book? And to her, it was a very small thing, a very small way of opening a door for me to grow. But to me, can I tell you, it was so profound because it made me think, wow, if she is going to ask me to help her with this bio, it must mean that she really sees something in me. It must mean that God really is giving me this gift of writing enough that someone else noticed it. So even though it was such a small platform, it had profound effects upon my life.
That is so amazing. It's a small thing. We can do that for each other, but it will grow into big things. Yes. Anything else that you see that we can do to help you along the journey?
Yes, I think a final thing that this older generation can do is walk the talk. Set expectations for us. So we said a little bit ago, this idea of genuineness, it keeps coming back up because it is so true. Walking the talk is the love language of this generation. So as much as you talk about wanting to see young people raised up in the church and young people in ministry, create opportunities to the best of your ability for that to happen. Maybe invite a young person on your team, invite a young person to your decision-making table and show them that you want your input, not just in words, but in action.
Walk the talk. What a great reminder. But it also tells me that somebody's always watching us. Not in a scary, freakish way, but somebody is watching us because that's where they want to be one day. So let's be mindful, even as you're doing the small, minute things. Let's just remember that for somebody like Taylor, it will be life-giving. Yes. So we're going to do this together. Well, excellent conversation, and I hope that this was really encouraging. Now, if you have not done so yet, please go to influencemagazine.com and check out her wonderful article titled, What Young Women in Ministry Need from Mentors. What an amazing topic, right? I think this conversation, the whole thing was based on that, and I know it will be a blessing to you. Taylor, before we wrap up though, we always answer one of the questions from our audience, and this is probably one of my favorite parts too. So go ahead and read the questions that we have for today.
Yes, so today's question says, how can we practically encourage the next generation of women to see themselves as spiritual leaders? It's a good
Great question.
Yeah.
First of all, I would encourage you to rewind this episode and watch the thing because it will answer that question. But I think to summarize 3 words: identify, validate, and advocate. Identify and wait. Taylor, I see you. Wow, you're pretty amazing. You got some gift. Validate. God is really using you. There's a call upon your life, and I see that. And advocate. Is there anything that I can do for you to practice your ministry skills and you grow in that? Identify, validate, and advocate. I think that's very simple.
Yes, simple but powerful, very powerful. And to that I would add, don't be afraid to set expectations because young people, we will rise to the expectations set for us. They just have to be set first sometimes. So tell us you see us as spiritual leaders with your words, yes, but also with actions, and we will rise to be spiritual leaders.
Wow, Taylor, thank you for keeping me accountable as one of your mentors. I will set the bar high. I will live up to that and also carry you through along this journey, right? We're going to do this together. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited that we got to talk about this important topic. Please stay in touch with us on Facebook and Instagram at AG Women Ministers. And until every woman fulfills her ministry calling, let's remember, we're in this together.